Why do some people never apologize, even when they're clearly wrong? Have you ever waited for an apology that never came? The answer isn't always pride, it's often psychology. Sometimes the mind protects itself, even from the truth. Your brain doesn't just process facts, it protects your emotions. We all want to believe we're good people, and admitting we're wrong can feel emotionally painful. So the brain creates defenses to protect our self-image. Instead of saying, "I'm sorry," some people avoid responsibility altogether. But the real reason people refuse to apologize goes much deeper, and it starts inside the brain. The first reason is something psychologists call the ego. The ego protects the way we see ourselves. When someone believes they're always right, admitting fault feels like losing. So the brain often chooses excuses instead of responsibility. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. It's the discomfort you feel when your actions don't match your beliefs. Instead of changing their behavior, some people change the story they tell themselves. They convince themselves they did nothing wrong. So instead of accepting responsibility, they shift the blame onto someone else. But ego isn't the only reason people avoid apologizing. Sometimes the answer is hidden much deeper, in the way they learn to cope with emotions. For some people, the inability to apologize begins in childhood. The way we were raised shapes how we handle mistakes. If admitting mistakes always led to punishment, the brain learns to avoid it. So the mind builds emotional defenses to stay safe. Those defenses may protect us as children, but they often hurt our relationships as adults. Some people confuse apologizing with weakness. But underneath pride, there's often fear and shame. They're afraid admitting they're wrong will make them less valuable. So instead of expressing regret, they lock their emotions away. And that's where another hidden reason appears: emotional immaturity. Not everyone learns how to handle difficult emotions in a healthy way. Another reason some people never apologize is emotional immaturity. Emotionally mature people accept mistakes. Emotionally immature people avoid them. For them, admitting fault feels like giving up control. So responsibility is pushed onto everyone else. Some people believe apologizing would destroy the perfect image they've created. Others may even rewrite the story to protect themselves. They may insist the problem never happened, or that you're remembering it wrong. Sometimes refusing to apologize becomes a way to maintain power. If they never admit they're wrong, they believe they'll always stay in control. But here's what many people don't realize: refusing to apologize doesn't protect relationships. It slowly destroys trust. When an apology never comes, trust begins to disappear. Relationships aren't usually destroyed by one mistake. They're damaged when responsibility is repeatedly avoided. Silence slowly creates emotional distance, and every unresolved conflict builds another wall. Trust doesn't disappear all at once. It fades one broken promise at a time. A sincere apology isn't weakness. It's one of the strongest signs of emotional intelligence. Because real strength isn't pretending you're perfect, it's having the courage to admit when you've made a mistake. So what does a real apology actually look like? It starts by accepting responsibility without making excuses. There's a big difference between an apology and avoiding responsibility. A sincere apology focuses on the person who was hurt, not on protecting your own image. It takes empathy to recognize someone else's pain. And empathy is one of the strongest signs of emotional intelligence. But words alone are never enough. A genuine apology is followed by different behavior. Trust begins to grow again when actions match words. And that's why the strongest people aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who have the courage to admit them. But what if the apology never comes? One of the hardest lessons in life is accepting that not everyone will admit they were wrong. Some people choose to protect their ego instead of repairing the relationship. And that's a choice you cannot make for them. Instead, focus on protecting your own emotional well-being. Healthy boundaries are not punishment. They're protection. You don't need another person's apology to begin healing. Sometimes healing begins the moment you stop waiting. Peace comes from what you choose to carry, not from what others refuse to say. But there's one final truth about apologies that changes everything, and it might completely change the way you see the people around you. One of the greatest forms of freedom is letting go of the need for someone else's apology. Psychology teaches us that forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. Forgiveness helps release the weight you're carrying, but healthy boundaries protect you from being hurt again. Sometimes the healthiest ending is simply choosing different paths. Understanding someone's behavior doesn't always mean accepting it. Real growth begins when you stop trying to change people who refuse to change. Instead, invest your energy in people who value honesty, accountability, and respect. The people who truly care about you won't always be perfect, but they'll be willing to learn, grow, and make things right. Understanding why some people never apologize doesn't excuse their behavior, but it can help you stop blaming yourself. Protect your peace, value your worth, and choose relationships built on honesty and respect. If this video helped you see human behavior differently, subscribe to Mindora for more psychology, curiosity, and self-improvement content. Until next time, understand the mind and change your life.